If you're shopping for a small electric car, you have some pretty great options for around 24,000 euros. The Renault 5, the Citroën EC3, and this, the Hyundai Inster. But what makes this special, and is this the one to buy? I'm AJ, you're watching Autogefuehl, and let's dive right in. This might be familiar to some of you because this is indeed based on the Hyundai Casper, but here it's got a really nice chunky micro SUV design, almost, in lines with what the Suzuki Ignis did a few years ago. But this is definitely bigger than the Ignis. I really like the Hyundai Pixel LED lighting up here. This is for the turn indicators. The main headlamp unit is down here. Some nice chunky design for the bumper, but of course, there's not so much of a ground clearance. It's really a tall boy, urban hatchback. I really think the side profile of the Inster makes it look really cute. I also like the buttercream yellow color. The wheels are also really funky. In the base select trim, you get 15-inch wheels, but here, since we have the top of the range prime trim, these are 17 inches, dual tone, and with these square cutouts. So really cool looking. It's so small, 3.8 meters, so really compact, really great for city driving. Roof rails to further improve the design philosophy of this being a micro SUV. Also with these squared wheel arches with black cladding. There's a interesting looking bulge towards the rear of the door. Not sure how I feel about that, but in general, a very smart design. And rounding things off at the back, I really like this Ioniq 5 inspired Pixel tail lamps on the top, and further down here we have those cute Pikachu round indicators on the side, and again a very SUV design themed lower part of the bumper. I think design is one of the key benefits of the Hyundai Inster. I think a lot of people will just like it just because of the design. But what about you? Are you one of those people? There are two battery options, 42 and 49 kilowatt hour. Gross numbers, mind you. The smaller battery has a system output of 97 horsepower, and the larger one, has a system output of 115 horsepower. The WLTP range for the big battery is about 370 kilometers, and the smaller one is 327. To charge them, you go down here, and then you have the charging socket right at the front. So 10 to 80% is about 30 minutes with the 85 kilowatt DC charger for the big battery. And with the higher trims, you get a heat pump as standard. You can also get the V2L, the vehicle to load, and therefore you can power appliances. So if you're out camping or something like that, you can have your espresso machine running from the car. Here's the key fob, but you have keyless go. So push the button and the door unlocks. Let's give it the door closing sound check. Pretty robust, no complaints there. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about this design. I do like the different shapes, but I think, the materials are not the best, which I'm not too surprised by at this point. However, I do really like these inlays. You can get different colors, and I would recommend actually they have a very nice ivory checkered white and black material, and that really makes the interior pop. This monochromatic black, not the best, but even these panels can be switched out across all the doors for some fun little accessories, including a little photo frame that you can put inside. The first thing that probably catches your attention is, hey, wait a minute, is this one single bench right across the middle? We'll talk a little bit more about that, but very fun and youthful and inviting cabin. So let me hop in. Really tall body, which means I don't have to stoop down. I can just sit down and swing my feet inside. And it's actually a lot more spacious on the inside than it seems to be when you look at it from the outside. So get inside and we have a lot to unpack here. The interior definitely is very impressive. Yes, you need to forgive some harder plastics pretty much all around. And of course, no damping on the glove box. But they've spent money on things like this nice ambient lighting in the front. There's a place to keep a phone, charging, USB-C, USB-A to connect with the Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. There's also over-the-air updates, and I think they plan to have wireless as well. A 12-volt power socket up there, even back here. So very useful areas. And, well, it kind of compensates for the fact that the door pockets are pretty slim. But also, look at this. there's a big console with, look at the size of these big switches for the fan speed and the temperature. So very easy to operate all of the climate menus while you're driving, even for the parking camera and the 360 camera, just a quick button here, volume knob, shortcuts, and even a multifunctional knob to, zoom in and out of the map or switch through different tracks and things like that. So I love that there's big chunky buttons and its own little display right there. Wireless phone charger. I don't see cooling here though, but still, it's pretty open. More storage down here, and even a power outlet, so you can even plug in your laptop. And I'll show you some of the cool things they have. These seats are very modular, so you could even make this into a mobile office. What is AJ talking about? But here's one of my favorites in the front. If I pull this up, now this does become a bench. You do have bottle holders, a smaller one and a bigger one. They don't have clamps or spring-loaded clamps, so it's not adaptive. But whoever your passenger is, if you've parked, you've plugged in your iPad, you're watching a movie with a nice sunset, you can bring that person a little bit closer to you. As standard across all trims, you get the 10.3-inch infotainment and a 10.3-inch instrument cluster. This infotainment system is pretty good, I would say. It does seem a little bit outdated for a brand new car. These icons are quite small. It's easy to see, but I was expecting a little bit more. A lot of the new navigation systems or infotainment systems, they have the widgets and the icons that kind of mimic how they look on your phone. So this is a little bit outdated, but you have a lot of customization options, a lot of menus to go through, including even things like changing what kind of a cluster you want. You can have like a cubed theme, you can have a classic theme, you can have this kind of sporty theme. So a lot of different options, so many different colors for the ambient lighting as well. Android Auto, Apple CarPlay wired at the moment, but hopefully with an update it'll be wireless. The navigation is also, what we would expect. It's smart in the sense that it looks for charging nearby. It has the network of the chargers built in, so it will plan your trip based on topography, temperature, how much range you have left, all of these things to make sure that you reach your destination with some battery to spare, or also ensure that you reach multiple charging points along the route as needed. The steering wheel itself is really cool. It's leather wrapped, so a little bit of animal skin here. Unfortunately, no full vegan interior, even though the seats are fabric. Illuminated steering wheel right here in the middle. Doesn't even say Hyundai, it's just 4 dots, so really cool. That pixel theme continues. The top of the range models also get these paddle shifters to change the, not shifters I would say actually, these are just paddles to change the recuperation. You even have a 1-pedal drive which comes to a full stop and stays stopped until you start off again. And controls for the assistance systems and the infotainment. And they are actual buttons, yes, they are not just capacitive. Also, this is not a switch like you would see in a Porsche or in a Mercedes, but this is just a button to change the drive mode. And you can see up here, the drive modes are Eco, Normal, Sport, and Snow. And Michelle, look at the steering wheel. Every time I change it, woo! It does a cool little graphic as well. A lot of gamification, a lot of gimmicks, sure, but I think this is a car for the younger generation who, the cars have become so expensive to get people back into driving. This is a pretty decent price point, and it caters to the needs of a 20-something-year-old, I would say. I bet you were not expecting this much room back here. And it doesn't stop there, because I can also slide the bench forward and look at it. Even with this seat in my driving position, I'm 5'8" or about 1.7 meters, and this seat all the way forward, I am not touching the front seat. So there's actually quite a lot of room thanks to this clever packaging, plenty of headroom as well. But if I were to put the seat back, yeah, enormous legroom. You can get a sunroof as an option as well. And it doesn't stop there, because I can also recline the bench. So these are 50-50 reclining and folding. But here's where there's a little bit of a downside. There's only two seats. There is no center seat. There is no third seat belt. So legally, this is a four-seater, but you do have ISOFIX points on the outside two seats. And remember what I was saying earlier? Check this out. This folds all the way down flat. And what you can also do is, you know, all these little switches and buttons that you see on the door panels and even here on the back, you can get accessories, and you can even get like a tray for food, you know, to eat and have some snacks for the kids in the back, but also like a tray for you to work with your laptop plugged in over there. Or you can fold this seat down, and then you have a long loading area to keep in maybe a surfboard or something like that. So very versatile, very modular, with the seats sliding and folding all the way down flat, really maximizing the capability of the interior space. All right, so there has to be some problem with the trunk, right? If there's so much space in the seats. And well, you would be right. This definitely is quite cramped. Here is Michelle's camera backpack, and you see that one backpack, which would be the equivalent of a cabin suitcase, trolley bag, you know, you can fit one here, maybe squeeze another one, and that's about it. So definitely city car proportions for the trunk. With the seats all the way forward, they say it's 351 liters according to the VDA standard, but that's really hard to understand. So let's take out the ruler, and again, this would be the worst case scenario when you have the seats all the way back, so very limited space here. You have about 49 or 48 centimeters, which is about 19 inches. And if we were to look at it across this way, you have probably about 36 inches, or about 94 centimeters. So not a whole lot of room, but again, modular. So you can unclip these little covers here. If we were to remove those, then, all right, so then we can fold the seats down. And now you have over 1,000 liters. And let's not forget, you can fold the passenger seat down, and then you really have a long area to load, you know, surfboards. But I also really like how the backs of these flaps have these hard plastic plates. So if these seats were all the way in the forward position, there wouldn't be a big gap for things to fall through. Plus, more modularity. You have a floor that you can remove and lower, but in general you would probably retain these charging cables and things like that down here. And with the floor on the higher position, there's not much of a loading lip. So it does make up for outright space with its modular seats. All right, here we go. We're driving the Hyundai Inster here, just going through Frankfurt City. Downtown is on our left-hand side. We're getting up onto the motorway. So let's start with how it behaves out here. There's also a lot of different safety tech on the Inster as well. So I can go here and turn on the driver assistance system. Let's increase the distance a little bit. And yeah, so now it's maintaining the lane. It's reading the traffic signs to see what the speed limit is. It's also measuring the distance with the car in front and using regenerative braking to slow me down. It'll come to even a complete stop as well. Of course, with the paddles, I can shift to the full regen mode, including a one pedal drive, and it does come to a full stop. So let's see how it's going to behave now. There's cars up ahead. It should notice that the speed limit has changed to 80. Yes, it's done that. And yes, it's also slowing me down and recuperating some of the energy. So it works really well. Now, there are some positives to this boxy design, and that's, for one, would be the fact that you have really tall windows on the side and a tall windshield, so you get a really good overview. But the A-pillar is a little bit further away from me. The bottom of it is actually, I can't even reach it. And so it does create a little bit of a blind spot right here. It just takes some getting used to if you need to peer around corners that you need to probably look up a little bit. But otherwise, really good visibility out the front and the side. And out the back as well, there's a very large rear view mirror on the inside, and it gives you really good visibility out the back. Plus you have a little shortcut button to turn on the camera here. The resolution isn't necessarily the best, so some cost cutting you can see, like just in general, they give you all the tech and the features, but it might not be the most sophisticated in terms of the quality of these features, like the camera or the refresh rate of the infotainment system. But everything is there, 360-degree camera, even with a render of your car in the spot where you're standing. The steering is also really nice and big, so it gives you nice control over the car and a lot of confidence at higher speeds. So even though this is tall and small, at these slightly higher speeds, it doesn't feel out of place. Sound insulation is good, not great. I would give it a 7 on 10. The regen is also really nice and strong, especially in the one pedal mode. There we go. So you have it turned on right now. And it comes to a complete stop, and we'll keep the car there until I tap on the pedal again. You can go into sport mode, and now the acceleration is a lot more immediate. Wow, I even feel a little bit of torque steer. Oh yeah, this is a lot more fun for sure. You also have Eco, which is probably better for driving out longer distances, of course. The seats are pretty comfortable, but that being said, it's not that wide. The bench for the driver's seat does help liberate more thigh support on the side, and that armrest is also really nice and comfortable. But I am pretty close to Michelle here. It's no bad thing though, is it, Michelle? No. But definitely for 4 adults, given the modularity with the rear seats, there's plenty of space around, and it's definitely very comfortable. On this roundabout, we can test what the handling is like. So the steering weight is quite light and neutral, but there's not a lot of body roll. It is front wheel drive, so trying to accelerate out of corners. Yeah, actually there was not too much slip, so it definitely handles well enough for a tall electric car. It also helps that the battery pack is quite low down, so you get a nice low center of gravity. And the suspension is definitely not too soft. It's, I think, a really good balance. So on rougher surfaces, you don't feel too much of the bumps filtering in. So I think they've got a really good balance of soft versus firm, especially on surfaces here in Germany at least. Out on the highway, the Inster definitely has good acceleration thanks to the electric motor. Even at 130 kilometers an hour, it's feeling pretty stable. Suspension is also doing a great job. I think it's a good mix of being supple and composed. But one thing that definitely stands out is the wind noise. There's definitely, at 130 kilometers an hour here on the Autobahn, there's definitely a bit of wind noise. But other than that, definitely can be used on a daily basis if you have to commute to work on the highway. There's also a cool little feature where if I turn on the indicators, it shows a stream from the camera on the outside mirror, as you can see right over there. Although I don't really find it to be too useful because I have a pretty great view out through the mirror anyway. If anything, you know, the B-pillar is a bit obtrusive when you want to join into traffic. You have to kind of peer around it a little bit. Other than that, some of the cost cutting is also a little bit evident if you start looking around. Like for example, a lot of these ADAS modules for the cameras and the radar sensors and so on, you know, whatever they might be, you can see them. Maybe a nice little cover would have helped tidy that section up. But I'm really nitpicking because ultimately this car has a lot going for it. But I think the main question that we want to answer is, what did I finally achieve in terms of the mileage and what kind of a range can you expect? So conditions are not ideal, right? Let's start with that. It's 4 degrees Celsius out here today, so it's very cold. I have not had much time to test the mileage. I have driven mostly on the highway. It's saying 18 kilowatt hours for 100 kilometers. That's That's not very good. Around 15 to 17 even, I think I would be happier. 17 doesn't seem to be too off the mark, but I think if you get a chance to take this car out on a long test drive, see what you can get. I have been running it in eco mode, and let me know in the comments below if you have experience with this car and if you're able to achieve around 13 or 14 kilowatt hours, or even better. Let me know what numbers you see. What has this car got going for it, and is this the small electric car that you should buy? I think the main thing is the overall packaging. It doesn't do any one thing really well, but it does the whole overall package fantastically. Yes, materials could have been a bit better. Yes, the fit and finish in certain places could have been better. The technology, the basics are there, but they haven't invested, for example, in a great map system. Well, you don't really care so much because you're just going to use Google, your Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. Anyway, the cameras, while you have the 360-degree camera and things like that, yeah, the quality is definitely not that great. But hey, it's such a small car, it doesn't really make a big difference because you're able to maneuver quite easily. So overall, for 24,000 euros, it is definitely a great choice, right up there with, I would say, the EC3 or the R5 from Renault and Citroën, of course. But what it probably lacks is that the minute you start going a little bit higher in the trims, like this particular version here, the Prime, even without the sunroof and things like that, it's 30,000 euros. And at this price point, the benefit of the value for money starts to diminish, in my opinion, quite significantly. And then maybe I would just go for another competitor where there's probably more space in general that's on offer, because in the lower trims you don't get the sliding rear bench, so you're really sacrificing the trunk volume. And therefore, it really depends at that price point if you're going to take the entry level. Are you fine with a four-seater and you primarily want to use it in the city? Then the Hyundai Inster should definitely be in your top 5 shortlist. Let me know what you think. Put it down in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Check out some of these other electric cars and some of the reviews of the cars that I was just mentioning, for example, and let me know which one would you pick in the end.